Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, February 19th meeting of the Town of Orange Plan and Zoning Commission. Before we begin tonight's meeting, I'd like to ask those seated at the table to please introduce themselves.
Tamara Costello, Administrative Assistant.
Rick Miangioni.
Ozzie Parenti.
Paul Denise, Zoning Administrator and Enforcement Officer.
I'm Commissioner Walter Clark. Commissioner Judy Smith Morgan will not be able to attend tonight. She had a previously scheduled meeting and could not reschedule it, and we are expecting Commissioner Paul Kaplan to arrive shortly. Before we begin tonight's agenda items, I'd like to ask for a motion to move item number 2 on the agenda to the end of the agenda so that we can discuss that without stopping.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. The first item on tonight's agenda is a request for modification of site plan approval and architectural supplement for property known as 447 Boston Post Road. I don't see the applicant here.
I told the applicant that I would handle that for him.
Okay.
I think last time, at the last meeting, we had handed out the proposed changes, and I also have an additional copy here. It's a modification, and just in my review of it, it's a modification that will enhance what was approved. And, there was an initial approval by the Town Plan and Zoning Commission. There was since a modification to a more simpler design, and they've since determined to go to a more complicated design with some gable roofs. I'll pass that out right now.
We have that, don't we, with the...
Yeah, if you don't have it from last meeting,
Okay.
it was handed out to you at the last meeting.
Paul, one thing I noticed in their application, they have a comment on page 2 under the dumpsters. It says, note, if objections are made to dumpsters being located in parking spaces, then dumpsters can be placed in the rear of the site, screened with chain link fencing with green plastic vertical slats in the chain link. And it says, see the site plan for proposed dumpster locations. The one site plan shows the 2 dumpsters in the very front of the building on 2 end spaces. And obviously, I think aesthetically that looks terrible to have the 2 dumpsters in front of the building. But additionally, this site is, by my calculations, is a little short on parking anyway.
Yes.
So then you're going to take up 2 additional spaces.
Actually, I had them resubmit with an alternate location.
Yeah, they did have that's what I was going to say, but
Okay.
they still have the comment in there that they'd like it here unless the alternate. So I think we should insist that the...
I kind of already told them that would
Okay.
be the case. And it didn't, we don't necessarily have to settle on a chain link fence, but
some type
I
of
thought if
screening.
it was located in the back, a chain link fence with the slats would do it. You won't be able to see it from the Boston Post Road.
I don't object to that type of screening, but the location in front I thought was unacceptable. Yeah, did you find the rendering? This is the one I have.
But Ozzie has to give an example of what they're proposing.
This is what this is something like what it was.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a sketch there. And these are the 2 that, right, Paul, it wasn't this the original proposal that...
Very similar to the original, but Exhibit B was modified, and that
Right.
was reapproved by the commission, and now he's going back to Exhibit A, which is a much more detailed and ornate
Right.
facade with the gables.
So it's Exhibit A plus the,
Rick, can you pass that to Ozzie just so we... Yeah. It's actually a modification of Exhibit A also. Oh, it's actually a modification of Exhibit A. Because see how the center gable end?
Yeah.
And then instead of those 2 other gables on the end gables, I'll call them, those are replaced by 2 doghouses, 2 smaller gables. And it also has that ornate railing on the top of the building, which...
This is what we're being asked.
That's
This is what we're
correct.
being asked to approve.
Yes.
Right here.
And there are...
Exhibit A is the original approval, Exhibit B is the modification that was approved, and then you just alluded to the drawing that is.
So Exhibit B is out. Exhibit A is what he has an approval on now.
No, initially he was first approved for Exhibit A. He came in, he was approved for Exhibit A. That was modified to Exhibit B, and he's now going to that drawing that you have in front of you right now with the detailed fencing up on, well,
Okay.
ornate.
So was Exhibit B ever approved?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Well, wasn't there a comment too about it, him going away from the vinyl siding that's on that building?
I can read the letter here. As per, dear Paul, as per your request, please find six copies of the conceptual design package. The main center gable roof gives us opportunity to apply internal illuminated channel signage. We also propose ornamental railings at the ridge of the existing hip roof made of FIPON or wood. See revised elevation. We are also proposing to replace existing sun-faded asphalt shingles with a dark green architectural asphalt shingle. Finally, I'm suggesting dark green fabric canopies, accentuating the entrances to the ground level retail tenants.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the commissioners, or thoughts?
I mean, this isn't a lot different than what was originally approved. I
Right.
mean, it does, I mean, the most noticeable difference is the railing,
Yeah,
which I don't, I mean, and there are more, as you, what do you call them, dog houses?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but, yeah, I don't see any particular problem with it.
yeah, I don't either. It maintains the theme of having a majority of the building, or a significant portion of the building being, the approved materials, which it is. It doesn't change that portion of the brick.
I think the shingles should be architectural. I don't know if they are. New Timberline asphalt shingles, midnight green.
I don't know if they are or not either, but although we don't have the authority to insist upon that in our regulations because we don't have anything that
Well, it just makes the building look a lot
absolutely,
sharper.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think you can require that.
Well, I mean, they're putting detail on the building. I would think they would want it.
My guess is they are. They're not. I would assume that.
Well, I
they
know.
have
I
a-
just don't. They could be. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's what I would suggest to them.
Okay.
I don't think it's a big deal.
No.
I just think the building.
Most
will
people go with them now anyway. They
look,
last
right,
longer.
but it's
and
just gonna look nicer.
absolutely.
Oh, so what was your condition again? I'm sorry.
Or just if the Timberline asphalt, they say new Timberline. I just don't know if that's a what do you call it? Architectural
Architectural shingle. They
I-
can refer to them. Yeah.
Could be.
Are there any other questions or comments? Is anybody prepared to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the modification site plan approval for architectural supplement for property known as 447 Boston Post Road.
We have a motion.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Approved unanimously. The next item on the agenda, since we've moved the review of the sign regulations, is review of the minutes. However, we can't do that without Paul here because Ozzy was not in attendance, so we don't have a quorum to review the minutes. So we'll move on to old business. Paul, I had one question under old business, and do you know the status of the study at the Marsh Hill Road?
My last conversation with Brian Miller was that he was going to provide you with a contract.
And I believe I think that was done a while ago, because I think he sent that for Vinnie's review.
Oh, I'm not aware of it.
Okay. I didn't know. I'll have to check with Paul Grimmer tomorrow then.
I know Vinnie's on vacation this week.
Yes, yeah. I'll check. I meant to call Paul Grimmer this afternoon, and before I knew time was up, so I'll have to give him a call tomorrow. One other thing under old business, we had the report from the finance director in our packet. Our budget request was approved by the Board of Selectmen, and now it's on to the Board of Finance for their review. So hopefully we get the money we're asking for. Anything else under old business? There being none, we'll move on to new business. Does anybody have any questions or comments under new business? There being none, we'll move on to the report of the zoning enforcement officer.
I think you've got a multitude of abatement orders, a stack of them in your envelope, and some tonight. We've been very active, both as far as residential abatement orders, and we addressed countless signs. And those are only the abatement orders. Those weren't some of the personal warnings that I gave individuals or signs that were confiscated on the post road. There are, however, that being said, there are a few violations which have not been abated despite continued efforts to get either the building tenants, the business owners, to comply. Take it one at a time. The first is U-Haul. This photograph was taken today, and they are continuing to park vehicles on the front green area. Also, last week, there was also an illegal sign or two that was out that I did see. They have not conformed to the abatement order that was issued. I've had numerous discussions with the existing U-Haul manager. I've had discussions with the regional manager. I got some cooperation from the manager that's in-house on the Boston Post Road. The regional manager, however, felt differently. I've also, in my cover letter, when I sent out the abatement order, invited them to come in and speak to the first selectman and myself, or the town attorney and myself on any Tuesday or Thursday. I also invited them to attend any commission meeting or two if they wanted to discuss it with the commission. They did not do that, and it's to the point now where the matter has to be litigated to resolve it.
Do they disagree as to your interpretation of the regulations, or they're just cooperative?
Uncooperative, and they feel it's their property. They can do what they want with it.
So I guess they're saying that the regulations don't apply
And
to
you know,
them.
in addition to these vehicles being out there continually, I've confiscated signs out there, at least on 3 occasions.
This is a business that, despite Paul's efforts, and they've been repeated and for somewhat of a prolonged period of time now, they not only do not pull back and try to limit it, they've actually gone and made it even more pronounced.
Yeah, there's
We
2
get
vehicles
signs
today. I'm
there.
going to be making almost daily inspections to take some photographs out there. But on some days, there's maybe 5 vehicles, and you cannot even see out of the driveway. I mean, they're parked all the way down to the pavement. So it's a safety issue as well as a violation of our regulations, a safety issue under our performance standard
Paul,
regulations.
at this time, do you want some direction from the commission?
I guess I'm recommending that we do litigate this.
Okay. I would agree with Paul. I would recommend that we ask Paul to go forward with the town attorney and take whatever legal steps are necessary. Is that, I don't know if the commission feels the same way?
I do, yeah.
Rick?
Yes.
Yeah. Do we need a vote on that or a motion to that effect? Motion. Would anybody care to make a motion to that effect?
That was a motion to obtain legal advice from,
Well, direct the
just-
town attorney to take whatever steps necessary to remedy this situation. I guess that covers it, leaves it open-ended to.
okay. I just don't understand. I mean, it's so simple just to take them off the lawn.
This one actually is great. You know, we do have regulations that prohibit the sale of vehicles on the post road. This location actually was there prior to those regulations, so they do have the right to sell vehicles from this spot. However, they have to be in the parking lot. They can't be on the green strip in front,
Oh,
and Paul
right.
has explained that.
But this is more advertising
Oh,
than selling,
absolutely.
right?
And both, actually. They, you know. So. Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, a second issue. This has to do with the Ocean Grill in town. There is a box truck with 2 banners affixed by string on both sides. Generally speaking, the way I interpret our regulations in previous reviews with town council is that if it's a commercial vehicle being used in the day-to-day activities of the business, and if the signage on it is permanently affixed, as is typical to any commercial vehicle, it's legal. However, This is clearly advertising. The banners are not permanently affixed to the vehicle. In my cover letter to Mr. Biondi, who is the manager owner of the business, I explained to him in the letter that if it's a commercial vehicle being used on a day-to-day basis, servicing the business with the restaurant logo or whatever, or telephone number, or whatever, as is typical in any commercial vehicle, and it's permanently affixed, there would not be an issue. I also spoke to him on the phone about this. Here's some of the photographs, and again, it clearly just shows that the banner is tied on in string. Suggestions made to Mr. Biondi how to make this permanently affixed to the vehicle. I was extremely clear, because I know he's going to come back to this commission and say, Paul didn't make it clear to me. I really drilled this home on the phone to him that this was not acceptable. And I know he's going to be in here saying that didn't occur, but it's in writing, it's in the letter, and I had a lengthy phone conversation with him to try to impress upon him the need to address this.
Additionally, this is another case where Paul has had kind of a prolonged enforcement.
We've had a number of other issues with illegal signs there.
But now, he's allowed to have that painted on his truck and
Correct.
park it there.
Correct.
Right, or to fix something similar permanently onto the truck. That's not a
Right, that's
question.
what I don't understand. It's a simple.
Well, I think we're being
Therein lies the
tested here, and I hate to do this over just the fact that it's attached by string, but again, I've had at least 8 other instances where I've had other individuals comply, with our regulations in similar instances. Light Expressions received an abatement order, the Parrot Place, in an attempt to address this. And so that's where we are with this.
He understands that if it was painted, there won't be no issue?
Yes, it was
Yes.
explained to him
It was.
on several occasions,
On
actually.
several occasions, he was also invited to come in here and speak with the first selectman. He was also invited to come in here and speak with the town attorney. He was invited to our last TPZC meeting to discuss it with you if there was an issue. I don't know what else I can do to make him conform.
And this person also has a pretty much a continuous sandwich board sign that they put out after inspection hours too. So he's clearly has no intention of complying with the regulations as we stand. So I would ask for a motion similar to the motion we just passed regarding the U-Haul.
I'll make those same motion for the town attorney to take whatever measures to fix this sign.
Ozzy?
I'll second the motion. My understanding is that you want the town attorney to basically take whatever actions necessary to enforce your cease and desist order. Is there a
Correct.
cease and desist order? Okay.
We have a motion, it's been seconded. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, passes unanimously.
There were 3 or 4 other instances where abatement orders were issued where I thought we might be facing the same type of recommendation to litigate the matter, but those individuals have complied.
This one for the Star of India. Is this wall falling into a place where cars are going?
Yes. They are going to comply with that. So
Oh, they are gonna fix it?
Yes,
Okay.
we had a meeting out there with the mason and the building inspector. Due to the inclement weather, they've cleaned up the area. There were cinder blocks that fell to the adjacent site. They cleaned that up, and they're going to temporarily patch the wall. And then when weather permits, they're actually going to, they were ordered by the building inspector to reconstruct
Okay.
the entire wall. That's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the number of signs that we've addressed lately. Probably since the last meeting, I've probably addressed at least 100 signs.
Paul, what about the liberty tax?
Well, I was going to bring that up next. That's another issue. I stopped by Liberty Tax Services today at 501 Boston Post Road. They had individuals there dressed as the Statue of Liberty, holding signs. I went in and talked to Mr.
I can't remember.
I think you have copies of the abatement
I'm
order
sure we do,
somewhere.
yeah.
I talked to the manager. I gave him a copy of the regulations in my card, and I told him it was a violation to do that. He was uncooperative.
He was uncooperative?
He was uncooperative. What I did when I came back to the office, I issued him an immediate cease and desist, and that's where we are.
This is when I actually was out on the post road after speaking with Paul this afternoon. He called and notified me that he was going to speak to the first selectman about having a summons issued to this person if he could get a police officer to go out there then. The first selectman recommended that we discuss it at tonight's meeting, which we're doing. But I can tell you that I drove by this location, and one of the Statue of Liberty people who was holding a sign, which therein lies the problem. They're allowed to stand out there just like the Statue of Liberty, but not to be holding a sign. But this person was actually standing right on the edge of the road, holding the sign out right in front of you, waving it. It was clearly a distraction and a hazard to traffic. And again, Paul did speak to them. They've been notified about this on several occasions, and this person just refuses to comply.
This is the tax service?
Yes, yeah. For a while, they were not holding the signs any longer. They still had the Uncle Sam and the Statue of Liberty out there by the side of the road, which they're allowed to do. But the holding the signs is not allowed. And as I said, when I went by, the person was practically jumping out into the road in front of you with the sign. So again, I would ask for a motion that we direct Paul and/or the town attorney to take whatever steps necessary to rectify this situation.
The abatement order went out today, and Vinnie's coming back from vacation on Monday, so.
What about the summons, though, Paul? Do you want to go forward with that?
I wish I had the opportunity to talk to Vinnie as to how to best do this.
Why don't we just do it at that point, whenever you feel appropriate? Let's,
Why don't we say, under the direction of the town, to litigate the matter under the direction of the town attorney. He'll be back on Monday, and
Okay.
I'll move that we take whatever enforcement action that the town attorney recommends, given the nature of the offense.
Yeah. Or whatever, Paul will speak to the town attorney, so I have no objection to giving Paul the.
he may want to do it with an infraction summons. That's a possibility.
Yeah.
I talked to him about that before.
Okay. So do we want to make the motion for Paul and/or the town attorney?
I'll amend my motion that way.
We have a motion.
Second.
Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Just again, one other comment. In the abatement that I sent him today, he has the opportunity to come in and speak to the town attorney and myself during our Tuesday and Thursday meetings.
And just to mention too, while we're discussing, Paul and I and the first selectman actually met with one business owner about an abatement order that Paul had sent out. We discussed it with the gentleman, and he was satisfied, I believe, with what he had to do to try to rectify the situation and is going forward with it. So the sign is on the building, is remaining there. This was an illegal sign on a building, but it's remaining there because the person is taking action to try to, he's going to go to ZBA and see if he can get a variance for this sign. We had another person that had a temporary sign up. It's kind of a confusing situation where the pylon sign may be replaced if a tenant is found for another building. So we gave him permission to keep the temporary signage up until such time as a decision can be made, which we gave him, I think, 3 weeks or so to do, to come up with a plan at least. So we're trying to be as cooperative as we can with the people who are trying to become in compliance. We don't want to, come down on them with a hammer, but we do have to bring people into compliance.
Paul, is there a methodology of just keeping an eye on making sure that you follow through and trying to get their variances or whatever?
Yeah, there aren't that many where it's difficult to manage. So
Well, maybe I should
as a
say
matter of fact,
you
they're
a
coming
copy.
into my office to help, getting help to fill out the applications.
No, I just thought maybe they should get you a copy of it or something.
They are,
Well, they're processed through my office, and there's only probably two or three individuals that are going through this process.
and these are people that have expressed an interest in coming into compliance. It's just that they're kind of faced with a hardship at the time. So we're trying to accommodate their needs. Is there anything else, Paul?
That's all I have.
Okay. At this time, why don't we go back to the review of the minutes from the February 5th meeting? Tammy, as I mentioned before, I had a couple items on page 2. It's the third paragraph. It reads, Chairman Clark congratulated Mr. Fisk and Mr. Pellegrino. I believe I thanked them, or something to that effect, of thanked them for their conduct during the proceedings, not congratulated them. And that's what I mentioned before about also on page 2. It's the second to last paragraph. It says, Commissioner Mangione suggested installing footings for the, no, this is a different matter. Installing footings for the equipment, and a brief discussion ensued. Wasn't that when you asked him about checking the drain pipes? This is on the playground.
There was a footing to hold the actual playground.
Hold it in place. Okay, so that's fine then. That was my mistake. Okay. And on page 4, third paragraph, the paragraph begins with a motion was made by Judy Smith Morgan. But about halfway through that, there's a sentence that reads, this application has been found to be consistent with the, and it has consistent with the again. And then in the re-subdivision application, this is kind of a question, actually. The second paragraph of that portion says, Mr. Weiwei presented a brief history of the property. He stated that it was formerly the Ewan Farm and was sold to Orange as open space. I believe that should be a portion of it was sold to open as, because obviously if the whole thing was sold to the town of Orange, Mr. Weiwei wouldn't be here. And lastly, on page 6, this is the part that we discussed just before the meeting. The third paragraph reads, Commissioner Mangione questioned whether or not parking stops would be installed to protect the adjacent building. And I believe he wanted the stops to make sure they protected the playground.
Right. I also thought he said the elevation was higher, like 2 feet. Didn't he say something like that?
I don't know if he said the elevation was higher. I don't recall the elevation being higher, but I know that, I thought
Well, I know he said he was putting stones or boulders,
boulders
around.
to protect it,
Right.
yeah. On page 7, discussion of appointing a volunteer assistant zoning enforcement officer. The second paragraph in that portion reads, Chairman Clark expressed his opinion that this position is necessary in order to enforce signage regulation during weekends and holidays with the Z. Okay, I guess that's accurate. I just wanted to make sure that it reflected that we actually had two resolutions that the town attorney prepared. One that had the wording in there that limited it to weekends and holidays, and the second one that did not have such a limitation. And I didn't know if that was reflecting that portion of it or just the initial conversation. I think we should make sure that that it is reflected that we approved the resolution that did not have the limitation for the hopeful assistant zoning enforcement officer, that did not have the limitation to weekends and holidays. So if you just, perfect. Are there any other questions or comments? There being none, is anybody prepared to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve the Planning and Zoning Commission minutes of the February 5th, 2008 meeting as amended.
We have a
Second.
motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
I'll abstain.
Motion passes 3-0-1. At this time, we'll move on to the public hearing portion of our meeting. It's the re-subdivision application for Farm River Estates, submitted by Farm River Estates LLC. Would the applicant like to come forward, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. We're here to continue the public
Can you
hearing
state his name?
for,
You gotta state your name.
okay, Robert Weway, professional engineer and principal with the firm of Codispoti and Associates. We're here on the continuation of the public hearing for Farm River Estates. Since the last meeting, which was 2 weeks ago, a number of things have transpired and taken place with respect to the application. There was one point that was raised by the chairman with regards to requesting the calculations for the upland area for lot number 2. When we went back to the office and did the calculations on that, there was a discrepancy in the amount of upland area that we had included within that particular area for lot 2. In addition to that, Mr. Jeff Gordon from our office did attend 2 hearings with the Conservation Commission, which took place last Monday and Wednesday, to go over the review and to basically go over the subdivision plan and go through the review of that. First Selectman Jim Zioli was also in attendance at one of those meetings, and there was some discussion with regards to the dedication of some additional open space in association with the subdivision. And I believe the commission does have revised plans that were subsequent to that meeting. And the area that I'm basically talking about is shown in red on this colored up sheet SP2. It is depicted on all of your drawings, the record map sheet SP1, SP2, and SP3. There was an interest in dedicating some additional open space land down in this corner of the property, which contains approximately 3,000 square feet. This would facilitate open space access from what the town presently owns to the south and provide a connection up to the Whitney Acres subdivision, which I believe right now the property is still owned by Mr. Peter Olson. And in part, this open space would be a connection from this piece to the Olson piece on Whitney Acres. In doing that, a number of things ended up getting transpired with that, with the loss of the area, and to come in with some additional reconfiguration to provide open space access for Lot 6 and 7 also. What we did is basically provide these access stubs coming down along the easterly property line to get down to that open space area. In doing that, it kind of had a ripple effect with regards to the upland area and basically the area per se, or area proper for each of the lots. So what we ended up doing was basically reconfiguring portions of lots 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 because of that ripple effect. Now, I believe with the revised plans, there was also a memo that was generated from our office dated February 14th, which has the tabulation and calculations of all the areas that were requested at the last meetings. And that basically lists the area for each lot, the wetland area associated with each lot, the upland area associated with each lot, and then the percentages that would be applied to each of those. One clarification I would like to make on that memo dated February 14th would be the last sentence of paragraph 2. Right after "and," it should read so that no variances with respect to lot configurations are required.
No variances?
Right, right. So I think what you could see from that summary table, all the lots in the present shape on the revised plans dated 2/13/08 do meet all the minimum area requirements as prescribed by the regulations.
Now, Bob, if I can interrupt you for a minute. We have this, which was submitted originally.
Right.
You have an updated one?
Yes.
Because Lot 6, what I was talking about is Lot 6, obviously, is the square, the location of the square, which was demonstrated on the map that he submitted, the one that Ozzy has now. If you notice, that lot line changed, and therefore the square would have had to been changed. And I thought that they must have it because lot number 6 has an area of wetlands in the square, and prior to this, I believe it had nothing in that.
Yeah, and
That's
actually,
square.
I'll just put this board up here for now. This is just a large-scale sheet of what I'll be handing out. There should be 7 copies here. The original is on top.
Thank you.
That's basically the revised sheet that we handed out at the last meeting, which shows the lot configurations and the squares on each one. So with the revised lot configuration, it actually helped us out with regards to the square on lot number 8. If you do have a copy of the old sheet, what you'll notice is that the percentage of wetlands that was in the square was right about at 10% on the previous plan. And With the new lot configuration, we've been able to significantly reduce the amount of wetlands that would be within the square area. And with that, so that basically leaves us with the squares on lots 4 and Lot 8 that in essence have some wetlands, and Lot 6 has a very small portion up in that corner too. So I think with the lot reconfiguration in that respect, it certainly helped with the reconfiguration of the square in that area.
I have a question about the newly dedicated portion of open space to be conveyed to the town. Is the river in that area? I mean, is the area in that area
No,
being
it's
dedicated?
not. It's not immediately in the area of the proposed dedication for open space. The river, you can see, like right here, it's a shade of blue. So I mean, it's relatively close to. It's in close proximity to the property line. It doesn't run through the property at that given location.
Yeah, to just continue with that for a second, we don't have the benefit of the other areas that are out there on your maps. Why is that little sliver necessary?
Well, this was actually requested by First Selectman Jim Zioli.
I understand that part, but why?
There's
Take a look. I
this
think we
portion
do
here
have an
is
overall.
open space, and apparently he's in negotiation with the owner of this property here to either require a right-of-way or open space from that property owner.
And that
as
little
well.
sliver is necessary to make the connection?
Correct. And that's why I asked if it was actually part of the river, because obviously if you're trying to have a connection, it didn't make any sense to have to wade through it.
Yeah, because I guess what happened was when the open space was originally being configured, there was no notion, or at that time, the access up to Whitney Acres, I don't think was fully foreseen at that point. And then between the time of that open space dedication and then the reconfiguration with Whitney Acres, I think that's when it became apparent that this was basically landlocked at that point, that there was no direct access. I believe that there was also an easement. There was some additional land from this piece of property that they're looking to acquire an easement, not in fee simple though.
Okay, well, yeah, that's what my question is. In other words, based on that little sliver, I'm not sure that gives anybody without more information, I can't tell that gives anybody more access to whatever the road, whatever the parcel is going to be.
Yeah, there's additional area off to the east here that's going to be included in an easement. Again, the applicant has no control over that property, but it's my understanding that's also being negotiated as part of the open space corridor to get back up to Racebrook Road within that area. Okay, the one other handout that I just like to.
Getting back to that sliver, Bob, how wide is that at that lower portion?
At the lower portion,
The foot, I'll call it, of this triangle right here.
let's see, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. If you take a look at sheet SP1
Yeah.
of your handout, it's approximately 45 feet
Okay.
in width. Yep.
And how far is that corner wet? I'll call it. I'm trying to
No.
determine how much of how much space is capable of walking through.
According to this one, it looks like it's right to the corner of the river. You can walk, it's all dry.
Yeah, you've got, there is some wetlands that comes across this part of the sliver, and I believe that does reflect on the subdivision
Yeah,
map
that's what it's-
and grading plan. So out of that 45 feet, it looks like with where the wetlands would bisect that, it's almost in the middle. So you're probably looking at where you've got 20 to 22 foot width between the wetlands and that property corner.
Because obviously we wouldn't want to encourage people to be walking in the wetland area because of erosion and so forth. And I was wondering if that's provided enough space to to get around there without being a problem for the stream bed.
Okay.
I can address the conservation stuff afterwards.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because Jeff attended those two
Okay.
hearings, so I'll let him speak to, what transpired during those hearings. And I believe that there was a letter submitted from the Conservation Commission with regards to that meeting. Just getting back to the revisions in the plans, what I'd like to do is, this is just another set of handouts. I'll just hold on to this one just so I could walk you through them. Yeah, I'm sorry for a couple of the copies. They had some streaking on them going through the copy machine. I mean, if you take a look at this drawing, I mean, basically what should be apparent to you is that the bulk of the changes took place up in the vicinity of lots 6 through 8. And what we've done is we've kind of color-coded what the original lot configuration was to make it a little bit clearer for you. So if we start over on lot 9 and work backwards, what you can see is that lot line we basically pivoted somewhere about on the axis of the stream corridor to help pick up some upland areas and bring the lots into conformance with the regulations. On lot 8, what you'll notice on the house is that we've actually shifted the house probably 3 to 4 feet further away from the wetland area than what was shown on there. On lot number 7, you can basically see the same thing with the house there with that lot configuration. The house is shifted approximately 10 to 15 feet a little bit further to the east with no impact to the leaching system. And the remaining houses for lots 1 through 6 all remain in the same location from the previous sets of drawings. I think it's very important to note that on the revised plans that you do have in front of you tonight, there has been no change with regards to the leaching system. They are all in the same original locations as what was originally submitted with the plans. I don't have anything in writing from the town sanitarian, Mr. Fred Schumacher. I did have the opportunity to speak to him today with regards to the revisions that we were coming forth with. And the basic response was that, you know, as long as the separating distances were met with respect to the health code, he did not foresee any significant issues with the revisions to the law.
But we don't have a formal sign-off from him at this point?
I don't have anything in writing. I don't know if he's conveyed anything over to Paul at this point. You know, again, I would go on the premise that. Yeah, I mean, I would go on the premise that nothing has changed with regards to the leaching system. What we're basically doing here is just, you know, for the most part, is just shifting around the lot lines to better get a better configuration, provide the access for the open space, and meet the requirements under the zoning regs.
Go ahead, no, I see.
I'm relatively uncomfortable with doing anything formal here tonight because I would like the Fred Schumacher's sign off. They are moving buildings. It just makes sense to me to get the formal sign off.
And I think too, didn't you speak to Scott too, that we need to, this is not, obviously the lot lines changed, so
Yeah.
the Wetlands Commission has to review this as well.
Yeah, and I had a conversation with Scott earlier today too, and I think Paul will allude to the same conversation. From Scott's take on the plans, he was not comfortable in issuing an administrative sign-off on it, just because of the lot configurations and some of the impacts that he may foresee on that.
Okay.
So it was his recommendation that the plans at least, you know, they may not need a formal application back to the Wetlands Commission, but he did want
Your review by the Wetlands
some
Commission.
input from the commission. I would ask that you have the chairman from the Wetlands Commission here tonight, if he would concur with that or felt that that was appropriate. Right, and the argument that I would make, and if we do have to appear before the Wetlands Commission again next week, the argument that I would make is that with respect to the wetlands, we haven't put any activity closer to the wetland area per se. The houses, if anything, have been moved further away from the wetlands. The grading activities where appropriate have been moved a little bit further away from the wetlands. So again, with respect to that commission, the only difference is going to be how they view the placement of the lot lines, and quite frankly, I don't know what the significance of that would really be with respect to the wetlands.
just think
The
that
problem is, you know, our standard conditions is if there's any changes on the plan or any deviations,
yeah.
it has to come back.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah, and again, I mean,
Right.
if we have to go back to the commission, then you know, we're obviously going to have to do that.
Yeah, I think we have to, just for the sake of housekeeping, we have to have, everybody has to be working off the same map.
Well, we still need a sanitarian sign off, so everything will be all set by the next time you come. Because wetlands is next week.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Just also for the record, you were passed out tonight, the recommendations from the Conservation Commission.
And I think Jeff said that he was going to go over the
Yeah,
ones.
I'll let Jeff come up now, and you know, he could give you the findings of that meeting in addition to the letter that's going to be put into the record.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Jeffrey Gordon, a principal with Codispodian Associates. I'm a landscape architect and environmental planner. And in our meeting Monday and Wednesday with the Conservation Commission, we were able to give a presentation of what exactly we're proposing here. And we had a spirited discussion in a number of different areas. A lot of it has to do with policy of use of open space, and that's something that they're going to, now that they're acquiring good parcels of open space, they're going to need to develop their own policies on how to administer it, how to use it, what's public access, what's not public access. So we had a good dialogue about that. I also had an opportunity to get on my pulpit and start talking about how this was a piece of property that cried out for a conservation subdivision regulation where maybe more open space might have been able to have been set aside, and that's something that we hope we can entertain in town in the future.
Excuse me, Jeff, did you mention that someone's going to have to regulate this, and it wasn't going to be the town, or was it the...
Well, the town open space, the bulk of the open space that the town has acquired, we talked about that, and then we're talking about how this impacts that open space. And then Mr. Zioli was here, and he raised the issue of the interconnection of the already owned town open space and the other open space areas that he was looking to get. And as Mr. Weiwei pointed out, we do have, the river is right off the corner of the property. We have a little wetland area there, and then we have an upland area as well. There's an easement on private property over here, and then this parcel here is the one that they're hoping to secure, which would now create a corridor right straight through out to Tyler City Road as well. So we talked about the just what Mr. Clark said about this open space. Is it a place where we're going to wind up with mini bikes out there, or is it going to be a walking trail? Is it something where the Conservation Commission or the Audubon group is going to come out and a few times a year lead walks on there? So these are things that they have to flesh out to see, what is going to be in the best interest of the town. We also wanted to have our open space as accessible as possible. And one of the other things that was discussed, and I believe is in your letter, is the access way along St. John's Drive as it's expanded. Is it possible to have the town or the developer to widen out the pavement at that point to allow parking there for any groups that are going to come, so they're out of the actual travel way of the road? So that was something that was discussed. And then probably the biggest area of interest was in the detention pond, to be assured that the detention pond was going to be maintained by the individual lot owner, or if it was going to be an association managed pond, that there be language in the deeds that passes through. Now, on the subdivision map, it's clearly delineated that Lot 3 owner has the obligation to maintain and be back charged by the town if he doesn't maintain. They just want to make sure that in your language of your approval, if and when you do approve this, that carries forth on the deeds, so as to be sure that whoever buys that lot.
And I think that's certainly preferable than having a homeowners association makes it. If you can deal with one person as opposed to 9, it
Right,
makes
and
it a lot easier to
I'm going to stop right
enforce it.
there and just ask something, Paul. I'm not sure I'm on target here, but please stop me if I'm wrong. We have a homeowner up in the Skyview area that has, the association up there has responsibility for, it was cleanouts, if I remember correctly, correct? And it's becoming an issue.
I can't remember the specifics as far as on Skyview. It
Well,
sounds like it's correct, but
My point here is this. Is this a discussion we want to have in that, is it appropriate to have an association or even an individual deal with, or is it should be a town responsibility? And I'm raising the issue.
I think Skyview is an association for that entire pond, or detention pond, which is going to be transferred to the...
that usually isn't the case, right?
That's right.
Right. Usually what the town engineer's been pushing for has been that the homeowner, if the detention pond is on his property, that the
Right, but the
homeowner...
problem was that pond was pretty much off the property. It wasn't,
Okay.
there's no houses connected to that.
So that I'm moving back to this one, because this is located on one piece of property, what Mr. Lieberman has been asking for is responsibility for that unit, for that homeowner.
Correct.
Okay, I understand.
It's much easier to enforce that way.
No, I have no problem with that. My question was the person I was speaking with regard to Skyview, where there is an association, wanted to turn the responsibility over to the town.
The town's going to take that responsibility.
All right. Okay, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Because in the approval, it was left to the obligation for the homeowners association, I'm gathering in this case, and so why would the town want to have that financial burden when it was part of the approval process? And I think the same goes with this, with the wording in the land records, it gives the town the right to go in and maintain it and then charge back the landowner. So we do have a procedure in it to make sure that it does remain maintained in a proper function. In case the landowner doesn't choose to do so, the town can go in, do it, and then charge the landowner.
I think the point of the Conservation Commission is to have that denoted on the appropriate plans.
To follow through on the deeds, because if somebody doesn't have a chance to look at the subdivision map,
Right.
then when they do their title search, they'll find these things out. And also, I guess it's also your purview if you decide we don't want a homeowners association, we want to be the individual lot owner, that could be part of your decision-making process.
The problem with the associations is that from a practical standpoint, 5 years from now, is who's going to administer them? That's the
Sure.
problem that we always run into on the conveyancing side. And there's no good answer. I'm just letting you know that's...
And additionally, if it does come down to a lawsuit, you have 9 people you have to chase down as opposed to 1 person you have to chase down. It certainly makes the administration portion of it much easier to enforce, should it come to that.
Sure.
Jeff, you mentioned that the Conservation Commission has it written down here that the town should arrange for some type of parking for the cars, and you just alluded to that possibly the widening of that. Is that proposed, that it's going to be widened, or?
Well, we had discussed that, and we, I don't know, Jim had made mention that might be something down the road. It might be something that you would ask of the developer.
Well, that's what we're kind of doing. We're
Right.
asking of the developer at this point.
I
The reason I ask that is because when it goes, before it goes to wetlands, I think that might be part of the calculation as well.
I don't think it should be a paved parking. If anything, a gravel, like for 2 cars, just gravel, no pavement. That's my opinion.
Well, the thing is that under your road standards, you have a road width and you would have a asphalt curb there now. You would probably drop the curb there and have a stone shoulder if that's what you're talking to, but you would have to define what you want on that.
We have some representatives from conservation, I believe.
The only thing,
You have to come up, Sharon.
no, my leader is not here. Dr. Tucker didn't come this evening. We
You
did
have to say your name.
my name is Sharon Ewan, and I'm on the Conservation Commission. We did talk about the parking area. We did not want it blacktopped. We weren't even sure about the gravel situation, but we just wanted some parking to be available, so that could be a place where people could go into the open space instead of going on Tyler City or Lambert Road. And it was just a
Was there a
short...
number discussed in terms of vehicle
No.
numbers?
No.
Well, I don't think it should be greater than 2, and the only reason for the gravel is so if it's rainy or muddy, they're not going to get
To
stuck.
hold it, yeah.
That's the only
Okay.
reason.
But that was basically...
What about the curb cut, Rick? Is that going to present a
You
problem?
have to drop the curb cut. It depends which way the,
Which way the flow goes, and that,
how the asphalt's pitching.
Well, yeah, you have to have some sort of a curb along there because there's a catch basin here and there's a gutter line that has to pick up the water. So at the very least, you'd have to have probably a mountable or 2-inch curb.
Yeah, you can have
there.
a 2-inch lip. That's fine, but I don't think you have enough room on that side, do you? To put,
Well, the wetlands is over here. You have an easement, 25-foot grading easement.
but isn't that steep there? Isn't it like,
No, it's,
why don't we wait till wetlands reviews that, and they can come up with a plan there, and then that can come forward to us, again, where we have a little bit more discussion with the appropriate
well, if you're
agency.
giving, are you directing us to look into that, to go to wetlands?
I'm asking you to look into that, yes. And I'm asking Rick to look into that when it goes to wetlands. How's that?
And that pretty much, I think, covered most of the discussion. Also, any required plantings or buffering that was part of the wetlands, they want to make sure that also the homeowners would be reminded of their obligation to take care of that, too. So basically, I think we have a lot of cross jurisdictions with the same agenda, trying to make sure all these things get covered someplace and don't fall through the cracks.
As long as they're in the deed, that, the obligations, I mean, that's the main thing, so that gives everyone, all of the prospective homeowners notice as to what the responsibilities are. I mean, I think that's pro forma.
Yeah,
that
because
should be done.
we've seen it where we put in double rows of pine trees, and the homeowner comes, cuts them down, and puts a basketball court in there, and we've had that experience here in Orange.
Yes, we have. Every once in a while.
And we don't want to have it too often. So, Bob?
Okay.
Just one comment for the applicant. There's no issue or problem to carry this over to March 4th?
Yeah, there's no, I don't think there's any issues from our end. Legally,
I'm
at
saying
this
is
point, do we
you
need
have
to
no
grant an
problem with
extension?
continuing the hearing till March 4th?
We don't need a time extension either, we have plenty of time.
Well, it's right at 30 days, but I would prefer that the applicant say it's okay to continue the meeting on March 4th.
I would say it's okay to continue
Okay.
the meeting.
Okay. Before we ask to continue the meeting, is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak on this issue? There being none, I guess we'll continue the public hearing until our March 4th meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.